So, hello everybody and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. Yeah, I know normally it'd be like coming to you live from deep within and then I'd make some shit up. But I don't know, it's sunny here in Virginia, so I guess I'm just blessed that way. We are the survivors of the alt-right apocalypse, the few, the brave, the bitchy, once more wading into battle against the froggy lobster zombie hordes with Rantzerker number, whatever the hell this is, 216, 218. Childless Cat Ladies aren't the weird ones. You are, because this is the level of our political discourse now. You're weird. That's where we are now. And
the blue-haired boobies with like the septum rings and the assless chaps. Right, they're not the weird ones, right? Shaking their booties in front of kids at the Pride Parade. They're not the weird ones. No, we're the weird ones.
So. Yes, and because they say it enough times, then it becomes true. That's how this works. I don't know if you guys know.
Well, that's what Goebbels said.
Mm-hmm.
So,
are we already doing the what is it, that fallacy where you just everything is Nazis? But it does, I mean, they kind of laid out the playing field, but for that to happen. All right, well, anyway, can you guys hear us okay? Just checking here. Looks good, but I see people, very old people complaining about sound, but that might be them. So put that horn up to your ear and listen. So we're going to be responding to a video and talking a little bit about the political discourse. I'm guessing that the DNC is going to come up because it's been going on lately and it's been a massive cringe fest. And there's also been, I would say that the reason for me that this is relevant is the tone of the rhetoric is coming out of the Democrat Party is very specific, and it's definitely up our alley, and it's something that we gotta address because it is essentially weaponizing female fear. That's the whole thing they're running on right now.
Yeah, no, right? That's why Allison calls the Democrats the party of single women.
Yeah.
So.
And we're gonna get into this video from Bryony Claire, who is an intersectional fourth wave communist feminist. Just the kind of person that ladies should be taking their life advice from. And she is going to, it's basically called Hateful, Miserable, Crazy Cat Ladies, You're Weird, Bro. And I guess that's an own. So yeah, I guess so. I didn't know. I had no idea how this works, but apparently that's how this works. So let's go ahead and just get into this. If you guys are watching...
Kevin, I'm gonna need you to stop squeaking. If I can hear you through these noise canceling headphones, then you're squeaking too much.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
She's a squeaky dog. Every yellow dog I've ever owned has been squeaky.
I'm just making sure that the chats work here. Okay. So if you guys want to send us a message at any point during this show, let me switch this back to me. You can do so by going to feedthebadger.com/just the tip. You can send us a message and we'll read it on the show. And please be aware that we are doing our monthly fundraiser and we could really use your help on that so we can continue doing this work, especially because if you're American, because if you're not American, maybe you don't care. Maybe none of this matters to you, or you aren't American but you do care because things in your country are probably even worse. Like if you're in Canada or the UK and you're like, what the hell's going on? Let's look over here, right?
No, actually things are actually better in Canada right now. So
how so?
Well, our inflation rate is lower than the US's. It peaked at a lower level, 1% lower than the US. America peaked at 9.1%. We peaked at 8.1%. We've already we only raised interest rates to 5% as opposed to the US's 5.5%. And we've already made 2 rate cuts, 25 basis points each. So we're down to 4.5%. We're actually starting to come out of of the catastrophe of overspending that occurred during, not just during, but after COVID was really after it was over. It was over effectively, and lockdowns in both countries were prolonged. But we didn't have a progressive majority government, like across the board progressive majority government that was, like could get away with spending whatever the fuck it wanted. So that's why we didn't have to take such extreme interest rate hike measures, and why inflation has come down. And I mean, you guys are like a freaking anchor attached to our ass. You're Canada's underpants. And we've got a whole bunch of American cement in there, thanks to Biden and Harris, but and the Democrats in majorities in the Senate and the House. But yeah, no, Justin Trudeau during COVID and after, he did not have a majority government, so he couldn't get away with just doing whatever he wanted. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like
What about the housing and immigration issues? So you guys still having those?
We've taken in a lot of immigrants, but most of them are legal, right? So I mean, like, we've taken in too many, but they've come legally, and a lot of that is the Ukrainian refugees and stuff, right? So
yeah.
But they came in through proper channels for the most part. We don't have a big illegal immigration, like border crisis going on. People overstay their visas sometimes, but it's not like a flood of humanity across the border. People tend to, especially in winter, not make a trek on foot across the US-Canadian border. Some Haitians did, and like during when Trump got elected, some Haitians who were illegals in the United States tried to cross into Canada illegally across the border, and Trudeau even came out and said, like, you're not getting to the front of the line, you're going into detention and probably going to get sent back home. So, like, I literally made a video, brief video, saying, you don't like Trump's immigration policy, but you want to move to Canada because he won. Well, you're really not gonna like Canada's immigration policy.
Yeah, right. It's actually harder to get into Mexico than it is to get into
I know.
the United States. Okay, but anyway, we're gonna look at this video. This is, like I said, Bryant and Claire. It's called "Hateful, Miserable, Crazy Cat Ladies." You're weird, bro. Where she's gonna essentially make the case that, well, the same case that feminists always make. Republicans bad, and they shouldn't ever get their hands on any levels of power. Trump bad, Orange Man bad, JD Vance bad, everything. Patriarchy bad, capitalism bad, all of it. So let's go ahead and give this a listen. This is her video.
My God, they went after cat people. Good luck with that. Turn on the internet and see what cat people do when you go after them.
By a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too.
JD, is the reason that you're so angry is because the cat won't get off your precious couch?
I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So...
He really did come in balls to the walls, didn't he? No, please don't leave so quickly. I promise. Some things just write themselves, okay? The cat lady stigma used to have a really nasty sting.
When I talk to you, do you hear me?
All right, I'm pausing it there because I want to move up.
Okay, like the couch thing. Can we please? It's not like he fucked a pie.
What is it? What is it per reference to? Is it his book?
It's apparently somebody made the claim that he. When he was a teenager, he stuck his dick in between two couch cushions and masturbated that way. And it's like, okay.
I mean, didn't Louis C.K. have a joke like that? Like,
like, people rub up against furniture all the time. You don't even want to know how many women I've seen confessing that they sit on the washing machine in the spin cycle. Okay, I'm sorry, right? Like people have masturbatory practices, especially when they're teenagers, that don't necessarily reflect on their character. So,
Mm-hmm.
and like my
Yeah,
best
well-
friend said he was like complaining about his water heater, right? He can't even have a shower longer than 5 minutes before running out of hot water. And I was like, oh my God, where do you do the thing? And he looks at me like this. I have a front porch, Karen. And I was like, he's always cracking dirty, but he's my best friend. Best friend. So
yeah, it's good. I mean, I love best friends. Best friends are great.
and he's got a dirty sense of humor. So
Yeah, well, that's partly
together.
part of the reason why. Like,
Yeah.
so. But anyway, yeah. So far, one thing you will notice is the same thing that's been going on with the, let's just say, the Democrat platform. Nothing about policy. Everything about things people have said. It's basically like they're gossiping their way into the White House.
Except for the things that they've said. Like, I want to give everybody in America free health care, free government-funded health care, including illegals, right? Like, what?
Yeah, but they're not. But that's the thing, too, though. That's just lip service, too, because they're empowered now. They could do all that now. They're not doing anything now. They're just telling people in particular that they're going to be doing that.
The reason they're not doing that now, and the probably the sole reason that Kamala probably won't do that in her first term if she wins, is because it would cost her a second term. And if they'd done it in Biden's first term, right, it would have cost him the election, the 2024 election. It would have been just like, no, Reagan-style landslide, right? Okay, and so it's like the really radical stuff, they always save for the second term. They always do, because they don't have to worry, because there's a term limit, right? You can only have 2 terms. You're not going to be running again. You don't have to worry about being reelected. So just like fucking spend like a sailor and, do whatever the fuck you want, because nobody can stop you and you have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. But I mean, again, like, no, but even that means that they're just in a trap, though, because they have to claim that they're going to give you something, but they can't give it to you yet. And they have to hope that voters are so stupid that they're not going to ask themselves, well, wait a minute, if Kamala's promising all this stuff and she's currently in charge.
3.5 years.
Yeah, 3.5 years. Why hasn't she done it yet? So it's still, and they know this, like, and they've even said it. Like Kamala has said, have you noticed the Zoomers are really dumb? And nobody thinks like this is like, for them, it's not really, it's not, I don't know, like the last straw, because like,
well, certain Zoomers are really dumb, like Harry Sisson and Luke Beasley, but...
Oh, no, Harry Sisson's paid for.
I know.
He's not dumb. He's rich.
I didn't say he wasn't cunning.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
But,
Ogres are cunning.
Yeah, so...
Anyway, let's get back to this.
Mr. Ash, look at me, because I'm talking to you.
Actually, I'm going to skip the bit with the clips because of copyright, but also it's not really all that useful. Essentially, Bryony is painting a picture. So she makes this video, and about half of it is her.
Bryony.
Bryony Claire. So she spends like a good chunk of the video in defense of cats and like owning cats. And it doesn't make sense because let's just be real for a second. I don't want to waste my time like defending cats or condemning cats or people who own cats or people who like cats, because it's not about cats, guys. It's not about cats at all. What JD Vance was talking about,
childless women who need pets to satisfy their mothering instinct.
Right. It's about women without children who therefore have zero investment in what happens to the country after they die because they're not invested in the future. So if you like, you're going to outlive your cats probably, or whatever pet it is. That's what I'm saying. This could apply to dog moms. This could apply to women who have birds or fish or whatever, or they're why-nots. So they take care. Yeah, chinchillas, whatever. It doesn't matter. Lizards. The point is, JD Vance is saying, and this is absolutely true, people who do not have families, who do not have children, who are they are less likely, not it's not a yes or no, but they are much less likely to be invested in the future of the country, and therefore are more likely to make decisions about voting based purely on what they want. And sometimes what they want is simply to feel morally superior to other people, probably to compensate for the fact that they never considered like starting a family themselves. And so instead they want to be the police of other people's families and control other people's future. And that's what they do. And that's what it is. Like, I mean, she's not going to address that because she's got this thing she wants to latch onto where she basically just says, go ahead.
You know, like when my kids, when my older two were born, you know, like I thought to myself, you know, like Jack, it was $38,000, and Rachel, it was up to $40,000, and then by the time, you know, Sam came along, it was about $55,000, right? And that's their share of the national debt, because when you break it down by population, not just by taxpayer, not just by adults, not just by employed people, that's their share of the national debt that they were born with, that they brought into this world, right? And Briony, or whatever the fuck her name is she's never going to have to think about that because she's childless, right? And she's never going to have to worry. Like my mom has told me, right? She's like 82 years old now. She's told me, I'm so glad I'm going to be gone soon. I just worry for my kids and my grandkids, right? I won't have to live with this mess, but they will, right? And I'm just like, well, yeah, that's the whole problem, right? We're borrowing. We're not even just, it's not even good debt, right? I mean, there's such a thing as a good debt and a bad debt, right? A good debt is taking out a $500,000 mortgage to buy a home, right? That you're going to build equity in, and it's probably, not always, but probably increase in value over time, right? And that's a good debt. And you'd have to pay rent anyway, right? So you'd just be putting money in someone else's pocket instead of your own, right? And then there's bad debt, which is borrowing $500,000 to pay for a big party that you can't afford. And that's what the Democrats are doing. They're paying for a bit, like they say they're investing in the future. We're investing in the future, right? What? So you can spend $8 billion and only produce 7 freaking electric vehicle charging stations out of it? Like what? 7 charging stations that they've built with that $8 billion that they awarded themselves. 7 charging stations. $8 billion, right? And I'm just like, why don't you just upgrade the freaking energy grid, right? And let the private sector invest in, maybe we can make green technology more profitable, right? And then people will want to buy it. The government won't have to subsidize every electric Ford F-150 $30,000, give the company $30,000 to make it, and it's not even selling because nobody wants it because it's not good enough yet, right? And there's not enough charging stations. And it's just like, why are you spending all of this? We just came out of COVID. COVID was already, because we had to spend on COVID. If we were going to do have any kind of COVID response, that required spending. I will argue that some of the spending was not necessary, but the 2020 COVID spending was necessary, right? And then, that should have been it. Do you know there's still COVID money floating around out there? Unspent billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars of unspent COVID money that was borrowed or printed, right? Between 2020 and 2021, and even into 2022, right? That hasn't been spent yet, right? Like it's like when the Paycheck Protection Program, when they did that, they underestimated how much money they would need for that, right? How popular the program would be and how prone to fraud. So they ran out of money really quickly, right? And the Republicans said, okay, so here's what we should do. We've got $800 billion worth of this $1.2 trillion we've appropriated. $800 billion sitting there doing nothing. We overestimated the need in some areas and underestimated the need in other areas. And we don't need to do any new spending. We can just reallocate the funds that we've already borrowed, right, and printed, and we can just do that. And the Democrats wouldn't have it, right? And because they had the majority in the House, they're like, oh, the Republicans don't care. They won't spend this additional $484 billion to refill the PPP. And it's like, but they're the party of empathy holding the American people hostage. It's a dual purpose freaking thing. They can say, oh, we care about the American people suffering, right? And the Republicans don't. And then they can say, oh, well, Republicans, if you want to actually refill the PPP, you're going to have to add this $130 billion more dollars of progressive pork onto it, tack it on. Oh, carbon offsets and DEI programs. That has lots to do with fucking COVID.
Yep. Well, that's how it always works. They add on a bunch of pork, and if the Republicans say no, or anybody opposes it, they're like, you don't care because you didn't. It's like literally they're and well,
you didn't pay the ransom, therefore you don't love.
Yes, you don't love your daughter, whoever it is. Yeah,
your daughter who I'm holding hostage.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anyway, so getting back to this, but yes, that's true. So she's going to make essentially the defense of cats. Nobody hates cats here. I just prefer dogs, but irrelevant. It's not about that. It's about single, childless women who are bitter and angry and vote out of spite. And that totally does happen. So let's listen to some more of her video. I just jumped ahead a bit where there's a section called, what is the crazy cat lady accusation? As this to say, what is the history of this misogynistic thing that I'm going to, well, that's the assumption, right? If women are made uncomfortable by it, it must be a product of misogyny.
No, actually, that men have rejected you, because that's the whole thing, because the worst thing in the world is to be rejected by men and be left to be single. I mean, there's so many desperate men out there, but nobody's choosing you. And that means that there must be something wrong with you, because no woman chooses to be single. As Kelly Chris Home writes, cat lady.
So there's it. Yeah. So she's straw manning a position. Let me just switch it here. She's creating a straw man position, which is that single women are single because they are not attractive to men and not because they choose to be single. This is the position she's implying, that people who make But instead she's saying, well, sometimes women want to be single, and it's kind of stupid. Again, this is stupid because that's not really what's in question here. What's in question is you can be a single woman with no children and still give a fuck about the country, and enough to like make like educated, intelligent choices, and not out of like bitterness and anger, and move things forward, and not just for yourself. Like, you know that at the DNC, they had a mobile abortion clinic, and they conducted like hundreds of abortions just during the Democratic National Convention. just because they had like made the women afraid that they were going to lose all their rights, so they had to act like, I want to know, did women get pregnant just so that they can go get an abortion? Like, did they like, because it's so ridiculous. They were performing abortions, and I think like selling hormone blockers out of a truck, a mobile station outside of the DNC in Chicago. This is like the level of hysteria we're at.
Is that really true? Is that?
Well, that's what I heard. I mean, I know the Quartering did a thing on it, and somebody else did a thing on it. I'm gonna look it up really quick just to confirm. I don't want to spread misinformation, but let me see. Abortion,
because it sounds
clinic,
over the top, even for Democrats.
Outside. Well, if it gets them votes, because the thing is, I don't think the Democrat Party really cares about any of these issues. They just know women do, so they just say it, because that's what this has become. This is basically all about the only thing they have. Like, they don't have the border, they don't have the economy, they don't have like, anything to counteract the fact that they tried to kill him, they tried to arrest him, like all of the shape that everything is in. People can't afford their groceries, people are paying too much for gas at the pump. Like I said, there's all kinds of crimes that are being done all over the country by people who can't be held accountable.
Three, count them, three potential World War III situations here.
Yeah, and like three potential World War III situations. So what do the Democrats have? They have nothing except women. And you know what's really amazing? Not to me, but it's really effective. That's how bad it is. That's how much women's victimhood matters. It's going to destroy the planet, guys. We're going to have a World War III because women had to see a tweet by Cat Turd that made them feel bad because he said repeal the 19th. And while everything is burning, I'm going to be pointing saying, well, it looks like he had a point because look at where we are, Yeah. So anyway, of course, PBS is trying to fact check it, but if I go to Politico, it says, so Planned Parenthood Great Rivers offers medication abortions and vasectomies free of charge at a mobile clinic parked near the DNC.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Well, at least they were
it's
chemical abortions and not.
Yeah, well, I guess. There's not a guy there with tongs. Truck. Yeah. No, but you see, I think that it's there. It's part of the show. It's part of the propaganda. It's part of the programming. Yeah. Let's put a van out there that's offering abortions because they're going to be. It's almost like. You know how you get women to buy things? It's actually more effective to tell them that even if it's something they don't think they need, if you tell them that it's only for a limited time, they're more likely to respond. So you basically say, look, if you don't get abortions now, you're probably never going to get them again once Project 2025 goes into effect.
But these weren't abortions per se.
No, it was like Plan B or something.
Prescriptions for Plan B, just giving away Plan B for free. Okay, just in case. Okay, well, that makes they weren't performing abortions, but they were performing vasectomies?
Vasectomies, yeah, that's what it says. Well, why not? If you're a man and you're at the DNC, you should probably just get a vasectomy. I mean,
well, because there's nothing but crazy to stick your dick in there, is there?
Yeah, I know it's dangerous. Just save yourself. Oh, you might as well cut your cords, buddy. Anyway, yeah, but that's where we are. That's the thing. With everything that's happened in the last 3.5 years. The only thing that the DNC has left is women. And so they're going to that's abortion. Why it's all about abortion is women. That's one of the ways.
No, but it's not all women. Probably about half of women are hold my nose and freaking first trimester, right?
Yeah, sure. But I mean, how many women are buying into the rhetoric that it's going to be a national ban on abortion? This is
No, it's not. It's not just the rhetoric that it's a national ban on abortion. It's going to be a national ban on contraceptives, on chemical abortion, right? The morning after pill, right? Planted. It's going to be a nationwide ban on all of that, right? And restrictions on contraception. Only married women can get contraceptives, and that way the single women will stay chaste, right? Crap like that. And then they're going to do a national abortion ban, and Trump's going to do it whether he has the backing of Congress or not, because that's really a thing, right? And it's like the Supreme Court basically said this is not in the U.S. Constitution. It's silent on it. It's the states' issue, right? And they were just like, so states get to decide what they want to do, right? Because there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution that actually addresses abortion as an issue, right? So they were like, throw it back to the states, and it's like, so you think do you really think the Supreme Court that made that decision is going to tolerate an executive order banning abortion nationwide? They're going to be, no, we already decided this was a states' rights issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, but what it really proves is that the pro-choice or pro-abortion, they're calling themselves pro-abortion, so I'm not misrepresenting them. The pro-abortion people are just, they're basically telling us that they don't want this to be a state's issue. They want this to be a federal, like, you know,
free for all. No,
free
like,
for all. That's what they want.
Literally,
So, like,
you should get pregnant and then have an abortion because turkey's too expensive at Thanksgiving. Like, you might as well, you know, like, just sacrifice it to Moloch, eat it, whatever you want to do, right? Just remember, you have to cook that turkey in the oven for at least 6 months before there's any meat on its bones.
And that's the thing. Like, the important point is, because people will get caught up and they'll say, well, you know, I'm pro-choice to this degree, or I feel this way about it. It's like, dude, stop. This isn't about, like, you're looking too closely at it. Look at what they're doing. They're saying, I want this all day, every day, completely free, paid for by the taxpayer, and like no limits on when I can do it, period. And if I don't get that, I will burn this country to the ground. That's what they're saying. So It's like a child throwing a tantrum in a toy department, and you're trying to figure out like what toy they want. No, you give them nothing, you drag them out of there, and you embarrass them in front of everybody. That's what you got to do. Like, you just, because there is no, like, I just noticed that too many people think this is actually a conversation, and it's not people just grasping at power and other people that are just trying to, like, you know, say, oh, let's talk about it. It's like, no, they're doing this on purpose. And a lot of it is, again, they're just using women because they're the you know, a lot of women probably
they're harnessing women's fear, because women are like, they're just basically lying to women in order to get them scared. And they're ignoring the fact that, you know, as a voter, right, you have your vote counts way more in your town or city than it does nationally, counts way more in your state than it does nationally because of the numbers, right? It has more weight. And you can vote on, you know, whatever propositions or, you know, vote into your state legislatures, the people who are going to back the abortion laws that you think are appropriate or reasonable, right? Even if they're a compromise between what your personal feelings are. And this is what really gets me about, you know, like what they always say about Trump, right? He's pro-life, and it's not pro-life full stop, but it's close, right? He's like, exceptions for, you know, rape, incest, the life of the mother, right? But he personally would not allow abortion in cases other than that, right? Or he would not like to see it, right? But even if he's the president, he doesn't get to dictate that, right? And it's like when you're in a position like that where you're representing all of the people, you have to find a reasonable compromise that everybody can live with. And 80% of America thinks a 15-week ban, like on a 15 weeks, you can get abortion on demand, right? Okay, first trimester, before the second trimester, right? You can get it on demand for any reason. Then after that, it's rape, incest, life of the mother, extenuating health circumstances, things like that, right? And then that's it, right? Like that's kind of the national compromise on this issue, right? And there will still be hardline pro-lifers who object, and there will still be like maybe 5%, 7% of people will object to that, and maybe 7% of people on the other end will object to it because it's too restrictive, right? And it should be allowed right up until, if you're in labor full term, you should still be able to like vacuum your freaking baby's brains out before it fully emerges from the womb, and that doesn't count as infanticide, right? It's like, but you literally have a viable national compromise, right? Where the extremely large middle is willing to live with it. And it doesn't really matter what any one individual thinks. You have to go with what the will of the people is, in terms of the majority and what's reasonable. And what's reasonable is a 15-week ban with a few exceptions after that, right? And like, I don't and they're saying IVF is in danger, like they want to ban IVF. No, but they do want to look at, okay, like what are the actual practices going on in IVF, right? And what the actual practices are is like you take 8 embryos and implant them, hoping one will take, and if one takes, hooray, right? But if 5 take, right, then you can do the selective abortion thing. You can selectively abort some of those kids, right? Some of those fetuses. And, is that really ethically okay? And like,
Well, how did we get here? I mean, like, because the thing is, I used to be really pro-choice, but now I'm really on the fence. And the reason why is because I think that the conversation about when life begins and what constitutes that is not being had. And what this is, I think, and I don't want to make this about this whole show about abortion, but what I'm worried about is that there is a truth about when life begins that we're not addressing. And people are, as more and more time passes and more women have abortions and more men don't get a say in that, I think that it's going to be more and more difficult to confront the possibility that we have murdered millions and millions of babies. And no one wants to face it because it's terrifying to consider. But it might be the case in IVF and these other things, artificial wombs, etc. They're all becoming more and more like ethically accepted because we've accepted abortion. And so when you start asking like, well, what's the issue with IVF? It's like, well, it's too late now because we're already looking at this thing. If it turns out to be unethical or worse, immoral, and that we've been murdering babies for like decades, then the IVF thing and all the other things associated with that they're all going to be called into question. And I think a lot of these people, they don't want that. That's why they're fear-mongering around it, because they don't want people to look closely at it, because there probably are concerns that are legitimate that we couldn't have raised when Roe v. Wade was going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, but I mean, life begins at conception, right? But that's life, right? And, like that life is flushed down the toilet naturally, regularly, right? An egg is conceived and the woman doesn't even know she's pregnant and she gets her period. Maybe it's a little bit late, but, and the fetus is so small she doesn't notice it. And so it's like Okay, but life began there, right? When does personhood begin? When does a fetus become a person with rights?
Right.
And
well, that's another thing. We should be
I
having
think
that conversation.
I think that, I mean, the hard line, the absolute red line should be at viability, and viability is 24 weeks, right? If it can live outside its mother's body at 24 weeks, then it's a person with rights. And like when I went on Planned Parenthood's website and looked up what to expect when you're expecting a second term abortion, right? They said, well, if you're over 22 weeks estimated gestation, right, you'll probably get a needle through your abdomen, right, through your belly, and before the surgical abortion is performed, right? And I was like, why would they give that needle, right? Like a big, long kind of amniocentesis needle. And so I looked it up, and it was from, I found a paper, I think it was published in 1995, right? And the way that they performed abortions that late prior to that was they would go in, open the vagina with the speculum and dilate the cervix, forcibly dilate it, and then they would insert cutting instruments and chop the baby into pieces, right?
And then pull the pieces out with tongs.
Pull the pieces out with tongs, right? And which is barbaric and atrocious. But okay, sometimes the cutting instruments damage the woman's cervix or uterus, and sometimes the bones jutting out of the pieces of the baby would damage the woman's uterus and cervix and vagina. And so it caused injury to the mother. It risked injury to the mother and infection, and then future infertility and all of these things, right? And so they decided what they would do. But okay, you can't take a fetus and remove it until it's dead, right? Legally, right? Because if it somehow survives being forcibly ejected from the womb, then there's all kinds of weird and ridiculous ethical considerations as to whether it deserves emergency medical care and things like that, right? And so they came up with this procedure where they inject a chemical through the abdomen and the uterus directly into the baby's heart that induces cardiac arrest. And then they wait for the baby's heart to stop beating, and then they pull it out. And I'm just like, and then no more damage to the mother. See? Everybody's okay. Everybody who was involved in the procedure is just fine. And I'm like, and no ethical questions at all. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, funny that. Well, again, like, don't want to make women uncomfortable, because that's kind of what this all boils down to. And what I was pointing out before is that even if, because I would imagine that most women, I hope, most women are not just out here like getting knocked up and having abortions like it's some fun shit to do,
or using it as birth control,
or using
condoms or the pill or something.
Right. And I would imagine that let's say a plurality of women at least would not get an abortion themselves, but they would still vote
never.
Yeah, but they would still vote in favor of it. Like there's still like this hive mind, like sisterhood thing where if there's a woman somewhere that needs an abortion, and they'll use the exception as like the measuring stick for the rule. Like they brought out a girl who had this horrific story of being like molested by her stepfather, and he knocked her up and all this other stuff.
And she was
of
only
course,
13.
yeah, and she was really young. And of course, even the conservatives were weeping. Oh, it's such a tragic story. And I'm like, how do you know it's true? I'm not trying to be mean, but how do you know any of this is true? Like, they're telling you, like, they just happen to have someone with the most horrific and yet very fringe example of something, and they used it to justify, like, essentially demonizing like the entire Trump campaign and trying to reverse everything that was done through Roe v. Wade, which was only changed because it was bad law to begin with. But here comes, and this is the thing, like, everyone falls for it. All you got to do is bring out some girl or emotional woman, and she tells an anecdote, no one has to confirm anything. We don't need to prove anything. We don't need to look into it. We just have, because, like, heaven forbid we say, are you lying? And because then the feminists will come out and say you're victim blaming, and this is the weapon. Like, and we're in.
And then if you say, like, but you could have driven 50 miles across to the next state, right?
Yeah.
To get your abortion. Like, what's the fucking problem?
And they'd be like, well, how could you with these gas prices? I mean, wait a minute. That doesn't quite work. Anyway, so yeah, ultimately, like, this whole, the entire Kamala Harris campaign is riding on the female vote, specifically the female vote in the name of the sisterhood and the single woman's vote. That's like everything it's riding on. And so we're going to find out.
Stupid people.
Yeah, and stupid people who just go for, like, you know, when you ask them on the street, like, why are you voting? Like because here's the thing too. She hasn't been interviewed. She hasn't talked about policy.
She doesn't even have a policy platform published on her website. Nobody knows what she's for, right? And they're like,
well, equity,
because she seems so joyful and you know,
they're just falling for it.
Good vibes, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Voting for vibes.
Yeah, I'd feel joyful if I had trillions of other people's money to spend on whatever I wanted, right? Like, I'd be like, woohoo! I'd be like freaking Homer Simpson going through Chocolate Town, running through Candyland there, you know, biting the heads off of chocolate Easter bunnies and stuff, you know, and dancing and prancing and all, because it's just like, like, I have all this money. And it's like, no, having been poor and then having 3 children, I have been taught to be financially responsible. I've been taught to, real life has taught me that, you know, if it's not on sale, think about buying it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if they say it's on sale, sometimes they're lying.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's get back to the video. I'm going to play some more of this because I haven't been doing that. If you guys don't want to send me super chats or super childs or Rumble rants, I got my eyes on it. Please go to feedthebadger.com/just-the-tip, or just send it through Rumble or YouTube if you wish instead. All right, let's look at some more.
Lady, a modern variation of spinster, is a term for unmarried, childless, and career-oriented women. This stereotype is used to paint women like me as unattractive man-haters who lead miserable lives because we don't live in ways that align with traditional gender roles. And a little reminder for you, in case you've forgotten, spinster is actually from the ages of 23 to 26. After 26, you're a thorn bag. Dang, you scared them so much you became a threat. Good on you. The term spinster derives from spinning woman, which was a job that single women or widowed women were actually able to do in order to be able to support themselves. There's an entire history about jobs that single women were doing, and it's actually delved into further in this book.
That's okay. I'm gonna jump.
I thought women weren't allowed to work until feminism came along.
That does boil the old noodle. Okay, so do
you know why they called them spinsters?
Because they made clothes on spinning wheels.
Because they made thread on spinning wheels, but why not spinners?
I don't know. That's a good question. Why then?
Because stir is a surname that's applicable to women, right? So a male spinner would be a spinner, and a female spinner would be a spinster. Okay, and we have very common surnames still here today: Webster, Baxter, right? Baxter was a female baker. Webster was a female weaver. A spinster was a female spinner, right? And you have all of these surnames that end in "ster," right? That go back like 500, 600, 700 years to when women were working before they weren't allowed to work. And women were having babies outside of wedlock and supporting those babies through their work. And those babies, whether male or female, had the last name that applied to the work their mother did because they didn't have a dad. Brewsters too.
Oh,
Right? Brewster is a common name. Yeah, because the brewing industry, the beer brewing industry was dominated by women for hundreds of years.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that ad we did where we went through. Forget, it was like a Super Bowl ad with a bunch of women saying, "Oh, women did all this stuff." It was cringe, but all right. Anyway, back to the
women did do that stuff.
Well, I know they did do that stuff, but like, it's true that they did, but. The thing about the ad is that it's the women in the ad are claiming that, firstly, that it was exclusive, but secondly, that somehow it's sort of like taking credit for stuff that other women did because you're making this collective case, like, oh, women did this, therefore I did this.
And it also completely contradicts the idea that women weren't allowed to work and women had to be married. And
it does.
Yeah.
Women invented everything, but they also weren't allowed to.
Yeah.
We was women. But anyway,
I mean, quangs.
We was queens. All right. Anyway, let's get back to the article or the video.
Hey, cat lady. Mind your own business.
Why don't you leave before I use this bow on you in a way you've only imagined?
You're single, you don't have any kids, you're a reject, and you should be shunned. Now, do you remember The Simpsons? Oh wait, it's still airing. One of the characters is a crazy cat lady, however, she's mostly used for comic relief and also, just to cast judgment on someone that's actually dealing with a mental health issue because that's super fun.
I bet you
Oh my god. Let me...
can't throw a cat over the house. I was wrong.
Finally, in the year of 2006,
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The Simpsons still got it. I don't know. That's probably old.
And so,
but I do want to say, like, when she says that, essentially suggesting that the existence of the cartoon character known as the Crazy Cat Lady on the cartoon show called The Simpsons, which essentially makes fun of everybody. And then she goes on about how it's essentially like, this passive aggressive way of saying that it's problematic because it like makes fun of people with mental health issues. She's literally what's wrong with everything in the modern world, like complaining about everything and trying to find a way to say this is problematic or this is problematic. Like, please, can we just put her on an ice floe and just send her out to the so that we can give her she'll be okay. She has lots of fat layers to keep her warm. We can give her an internet connection that doesn't go, it goes only to like North Korea, and she can make endless videos about everything wrong with everything that she takes for granted. I can't stand it when people do that with art. I think The Simpsons is art, in my opinion. But anyway,
not so much anymore, but
no, like it isn't what it used to be. But again, it's because of people like this.
It's become infiltrated. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened to Apu. Like that
character's Pedalon.
Yeah, he's gone. Like that character is dead. Like they can't do anything with it anymore because some Indian guy got mad that he existed, complained, and then because they bent the knee, he's like it's gone. Like they should have said this and then just continue make a whole episode with a whole bunch of different Apus, all voiced by Hank Azaria, just to tell them go fuck yourself. But they didn't. So anyway. That gets in my craw.
Oh,
an 18 to be precise.
What?
does it?
I don't know. Is that an expression to say that annoys me?
It sticks in your craw.
Sticks in my craw. That's right. That's what it
Your
does.
craw is this part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
I'll
it
remember
sticks. It's a hard pill to swallow.
that. All right, I got a Rumble rant from Nova Fan. He says, hot take, her straw man still proves him right. With an attitude like hers, only selfish women will agree with her. Thank you. Yeah, but the thing is, like, these people are always validating all of their selfishness and their solipsism. They validate it by saying, you can't tell me what I can do. And they complain until they get political power, and then they use it to make your life harder. And then they say, why are you mad?
We actually get her backstory. So her name is Eleanor Abernathy. She's only 40 years old. She was an
I'm
incredible...
going to skip this part because fictional character backstory is not an argument. I don't understand.
Well, no, but that backstory was like something that some feminist came up with. The only reason she's crazy is because she suffered so much oppression under the patriarchy.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, they're always using fiction to validate their bad ideas, and it was the crazy cat lady was a professional girl boss, and something she went crazy. So I don't know, is the Simpsons sympathetic or not? Because it sounded like they weren't a second ago, but now you're saying, oh, she has a whole backstory and it validates everything. It's like, what? Then that means that, do you think these people are real? Do you think Springfield's a real place? What? Anyway.
Yeah, well, and I could make the same argument for some freaking people who are considered crazy, on our side of things, right?
Alex Jones?
No, I mean on our side of the men's thing, right?
Oh.
Your wife takes your house and your kids and everything that you own, and you have to start from less than nothing because you're paying child support and alimony. I think that could make somebody crazy.
Yeah. I think that being a victim of essentially financial and emotional abuse can, in fact, do serious damage.
Yeah.
And a lot of people make fun of them too. Homeless guys get made fun of all the time. So anyway, let's get back to this video, I guess. So
life matter any less. However, J.D. Vance said this.
Let's give votes to all children in this country, but let's give control over those votes to the parents of those children. You should have more power. You should have more of an ability to speak your voice in our democratic republic than people who don't have kids. Let's face the consequences and the reality. If you don't have as much of an investment in the future of this country, maybe you shouldn't get nearly the same voice.
Can I just say that I adore this line of questioning?
Senator J.D. Vance has suggested that someone who has children should have more votes than a person who does not have children. I just want to be clear here. Is that the position of your campaign?
Well, no, but it's not something I have ever heard before. I can tell you this.
Look right here. We've all been here, right?
Stereotypes of I like this note here. Stereotypes of the angry black woman make any reaction other than simple impossible.
She's literally got the look on her face of the angry black woman. I'm sorry. She looks. I'm an angry woman.
Well, she was extreme. Did you see that? Interview or whatever with that woman, because she was extremely combative.
Hostile, right
from the get-go. So she's using the reactions of someone who was going to be hostile towards the interviewee, towards Trump, as a justification for her position. So this woman hates the orange man. I hate the orange man. I agree with this woman, and all of her reactions are not irrational or unreasonable.
The whites of her eyes, she hasn't basically, she's literally showing the whites of her eyes. I show the whites of my eyes. When I show the whites of my eyes, people back off. Right? And my husband, he doesn't generally show the whites of his eyes. He just kind of goes completely dead in the face when he's confronted with some kind of horrible conflict. And then he talks very quietly and is very polite, and people back off. And if he did anything other than that, if he actually showed the whites of his eyes and shouted, oh yeah, no, he'd be in handcuffs, right?
Mhm.
And he wouldn't have to lift a finger. He wouldn't have to put a finger on anyone. All he'd have to do is show the whites of his eyes and raise his voice, right? But women can do this all day long. They can glare at people and be like, "Are you fucking kidding me, you fucker?" Right? And it's they get away with it because nobody sees them as a threat, right? And it's like stereotypes of the angry black woman. Whatever, she's angry, she's black,
And she's a woman.
Yeah, and she's displaying. And she's displaying her. Well, I thought the she was implied that, but
I think
and she's
it's true.
displaying it on her face right now.
Yep. And I want to just say that so it seems that this one was this Bryony Claire is trying to have her cake and eat it too. Surprise, surprise! Feminists want to do that. She's basically using the reaction of an angry black woman to justify her argument, while also saying that the angry black woman is a bad negative stereotype that we probably shouldn't support. That's why she put this notice that says stereotypes of the angry black woman make any reaction other than civil impossible for Rachel Scott. Pictured. So she's claiming, look, she looks angry, but and I know that she is because she thinks Trump is lying or being dishonest in some way. Therefore, I'm going to use this to strengthen my argument, but I'm not also playing into that stereotype of the angry black woman. These are all just various controls too, by the way. If a woman is black and angry, then that's what she is. It's not my fault that they're actually constantly making the stereotype real. It's not my fault. So why am I constantly trying to navigate this minefield of talking points that you guys keep laying out? That's the thing that really frustrates. I've been doing this for over 10 years now. And the one thing that really frustrates me is that it's impossible to just be honest, because there's all kinds of bullshit landmines all around that are you wouldn't want to victim blame. Well, you wouldn't want to stereotype women as angry or hysterical. Well, you don't want to go down the angry black woman. Well, you don't want to. It's stop it. I'm just trying to address reality. And you're making it impossible.
Yeah, no. And she actually is saying, or implying in this comment here, any reaction other than civil, right, are impossible for Rachel Scott. And it's is she saying that Rachel Scott was civil?
Yeah, that's what she's saying. She thinks that Rachel Scott was complete. Well, she has to, though, because again, this is a trap. If she says she is angry, then she is perpetuating the stereotype of the angry black woman. So she can't do that. So she this it's they're like lawyers. They're being really, really careful and they're navigating, the trap that they have laid out. So they're going to do everything they can to avoid falling into the same, pitfalls, but they're okay with other people doing it. In fact, they hope they do. They welcome it. They tempt you. And if you say something like, well, she was an angry bitch, then they're going to be like, you're the bigot. You lose the argument because you have agreed that she is an angry black woman, even though she be an angry black woman or whatever the trap is.
Yeah, the one thing that I want to know is if this Bryony or Bryony or Brony, okay, whatever she is, if she doesn't care about attracting a man, why is she investing so much money in her appearance?
All of this stuff? Well,
yeah,
she
the
is
false eyelashes and the.
This is gonna sound really, really depressing, but I think she's married to a man. Yeah. I think she is, but also, but she's also a queer woman. So I think that she's in a situationship of some kind.
Oh no, you can
And-
be a queer woman and married to a man. I'm a queer woman who's married to
No,
a man. I'm not in a situationship.
Yeah, I think she is though. She's not like a normal, stable, mentally healthy queer woman. She is a feminist, leftist, communist queer woman that doesn't believe in property. Therefore, she's sharing her property
She doesn't believe in property.
No, of course not. She's a communist.
Well, but she has she's in a nice house there.
Yeah, well,
And
communists are hypocrites,
she's obviously
Karen. I don't know what to tell you.
spending money on her appearance and okay, look at her fingernails and look at my fingernails, right? Especially look at this one, which I destroyed with a hammer 2 years ago, and it still hasn't grown back right. Okay, so, yeah, no, I couldn't afford to look like her. I couldn't afford all that jewelry, that nice dress, that obvious dye job, right? The manicure, the rings, the false eyelashes. I mean, who can afford to be like that? Does she have a job?
Here's well, she makes videos.
Oh,
I think that's her job. She's got like 70-something thousand subscribers on this channel. She probably gets, I think she's got like a Patreon or something. She gets paid to do this. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, because I've been doing this a while. All of these commie feminist channels, I'm almost positive they all get paid by other organizations. Like there was a woman, I can't remember her name, but there was a woman who used to appear regularly on the whatever podcast, but she's also been on many of other places, and she debates on behalf of feminism, and she gets paid by Planned Parenthood, by the Biden administration. I bet they get paid a lot of money. I remember that Prince of Queens was looking at how much money he made a video about rest in peace, Prince of Queens, but he made a video about ContraPoints, and he was basically making the case that BreadTube and all of the people associated with all these leftist YouTube channels, they're all AstroTurf. They all get money from like all these, because that's what they use. Like look at the DNC.
Beasley and Sisson, and there's all kinds of TikTok influencers and stuff who are making $1,000 to $10,000, maybe even more every video. Yeah,
all of Kamala's rallies are basically just concerts with food and everything. They're not going to see her. She shows up at the end for the final speech, the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, and everybody's already leaving.
Yeah, they're all there to see Megan Thee Stallion and shit. So it's all AstroTurf, dude. It's all fake. And I think that it's been this on social media forever. And that woman I was talking about, she admitted on a podcast, oh yeah, I get money from, all these different left-wing groups. I just get money to basically go out there and defend feminism. And it works.
Oh no, there was this makeup influencer on TikTok who was interviewed by, I think it was CBS News, CBS Nightly News, maybe it was ABC. And the video is no longer available. Yeah, but she said, the DNC pays me between sometimes $1,000 some video, sometimes a little more, while I'm applying my makeup, right?
Yeah.
Talk about Kamala and how I'm going to vote for her and why, and they give me a list of bullet points to bring up, and then I take those.
Is Joy one of them? I'm sure it is.
Soon. But and then they, she incorporates them into her spiel. She says that she kind of translates it into her own particular voice and personality, right? This list of bullet points, talking points that they give her, and they pay her, and none of them, not Luke Beasley, not Harry Sisson, right? Not freaking this makeup influencer. None of them are telling their audience that these are bought and paid for by a political party. like that they're actually campaign ads. They're not real content.
Yep. I got a super chow from Vasectomy Truck for $5, and they said the New York Post says there was a taco truck right outside or next to, I guess, the vasectomy truck. So they also had food trucks like mixed in with the Plan B stuff. So because you never know, you might be hungry after you knock a girl up, and you might want.
Was it a pink taco truck? Or a fish taco truck? Because you never know.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good question.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, let's get back to the video a little bit more here. So, all right.
I hate being in this position because you really want to yell, but you're not allowed to because it's not polite. And then you're going to have all of these stereotypes used against you. But oh my goodness, you have the patience of a saint, genuinely. The thing is that not everyone.
Well, let's address this really quick about the what JD Vance's comments were, because I think obviously people like this are going to take them out of context. They don't care, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, the thing about women like this is they don't believe men should have an opinion on anything at all unless it agrees with them. So what is JD Vance talking about in the clip? I don't know the full clip, but I don't think the context is necessary. But I will go back and play it again because I think he has a point.
He does.
He's trying to say, okay, what he's trying to get at, I think, is that the family unit should have a more powerful voice in deciding, like in elections, than a single person does. And as a well, I'm married, but I don't have kids, right? Yeah. If there was a policy passed in the future that said if you don't have kids, you know, your vote counts for less or something, I mean, I would be. Or their vote counts for more. I wouldn't care about that. It would not bother me. I would understand it, and I would be in support of it, even though I wouldn't benefit from that, or at least like in terms of like my input. I don't see why that's a big deal, but they do because they want their voice to matter as much or more than people with families, and they hate the fact that people with families are more, I don't know, like at least in some circles, they are more valued. And this is the thing, it's a reality like we have to face. If you're like going to be involved with men's issues, you have to care about the family. You have to.
Yeah,
you can't leave that out. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to acknowledge that we have a demographic winter coming. Right? Winter is coming. And you know, pretty soon the number of people collecting pensions and Social Security are going to outnumber the people who are on the ground doing the work that actually pays for that. And so it's like we have been between our economic policy, which is in at least in terms of the Biden administration, modern monetary policy, which is like completely freaking wacko. And then the, you know, the social trends, right, of people having fewer children, and people consuming more and saving less because the government is saving for them because of Social Security and Medicare. They're going to be taken care of, right? So why bother having children? You know, why bother having 3 children to kind of ensure that at least 2 of them will still be alive to help take care of me when I'm old? I don't have to do that anymore. And, you know, what I paid into Social Security, and I agree, right? You paid into Social Security, so you should be getting the benefits. But your dollar back in 1970 was worth a whole lot more than the dollar is now. Right?
That's correct.
Do you know how much a pack of freaking cigarettes cost in 1985? 90 cents. Do you know how much a pack of bubble gum, right?
10 cents.
Or not double bubble, but Hubba Bubba bubble gum.
Hubba Bubba?
Yeah, no, it was a full pack of bubble gum.
It was like a quarter or something?
It was
50 cents, 35 cents, something like that?
20 cents. 20 cents. right? And, you know, like everything that costs $1 now cost like 35 cents back then, right? And so you're looking at like, okay, so people paid into Social Security, but because the government has completely mismanaged the investment and caused like inflation, you know, inflation in the 1970s and 80s, inflation, you know, like sort of the financial crisis of 2008 and now the last 2-3 years, right? That money hasn't grown at pace with inflation. So they've been having to top up Social Security with other people's money.
Yep.
Right. And it's just like, and you know, like, and now you got these crazy fucking ideas from Kamala, like, I want to tax unrealized capital gains. How the fuck does that work? How the fuck does that work?
She doesn't
right?
know.
Because like, no, everybody on the planet is going to basically say, well, you know what? I'm going to not buy anything. I'm going to not buy any stocks, right? And all of the insiders in Congress, like Pelosi, right? They're going to see this bill coming down the pike that taxes unrealized capital gains. They're going to dump all their stocks. They're going to crash the market, right? Because they're going to be freaking charged taxes on how much their stocks have appreciated before they even cash out. Right? And it's like, and they'll be taxed yearly on that, right? How much did it appreciate this year? And this isn't just like Pelosi and co, right? The insiders who know when to pull out of the market and crash everything. This is people with like retirement funds, 401ks. This is people with like a smattering of average people with a smattering of investments like me. You know, I got $18,000 in the stock market. Right. And they're going to tax me on how much it's increased since I bought it. Right. Even though I haven't sold it yet. Right.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to get out of the stock game if there's anything like this. And then the whole market's going to crash. They're going to destroy everything. And it's all because they can't they're incapable of extrapolation. Right. Like,
or they're not, or they don't care. I mean, I think that care. Yeah, I think actually it's more likely that they just don't care. And it's all about like, you know, grabbing whatever you can get before the ship sinks and like leaving, right? Grabbing whatever you can get your hands on and then getting out of the building while it's burning down. And
well, look at
pulling up the ladder behind you as well. So
who's going to benefit from Kamala's housing policy, right? Okay, this is one of the policies that she brought in, right? She's like, okay, so I'm going to give every first-time home buyer a $25,000 subsidy to go towards their down
which is
payment.
just going to make the buildings
$25,000
more expensive.
That's
and it's
right,
like, whose money is that you're even like offering us? It's our money. So
yeah,
anyway, go ahead.
I know. And it's and then on top of that, right, because of this extravagant spending, it's going to increase inflation. So the buildings, the actual homes are going to increase more than $25,000 because everything in the economy is going to increase in price. Right, including building materials and, you know, all those other things, right? So you have this thing where she's gonna give this freebie, right? And it's not going to do anybody any actual good. It's actually going to harm them in the long run, and it's not going to make the homes any more affordable. And then she's going to do we're going to increase the corporate income tax, right? And it's like, what? Okay, Canada has a 22% corporate income tax, right? Ireland has an 8%, last I checked, 8% corporate income tax. You know why corporate income taxes should be low? Because the consumer ends up paying them. Right? It's not the corporation that provides the goods and services that pays those taxes. It's the people who buy the product or the service, okay, that pays those taxes. She's like, oh, the grocery stores are price gouging. No, they're not. They're not. Okay. And she's like, well, but this grocery store made $1 billion in profits before the pandemic and $1.2 billion in yearly profits today or in 2023. And I'm like, that's a 20% increase in raw numbers, raw dollars, right? Which is inflation. That just reflects inflation, right? And when you look at their margins, which is all of their revenues, right? All the money in their cash register minus all of their costs, including taxes, okay? What you're left with is the same 1 to 3% profit margin grocery stores have been earning for the last 50 years. Right?
Yep.
And
yep,
it's like, and those 1 to 3% profit margins, right? That's paying dividends to stockholders, and not just the big fat cats, right? Like Warren Buffett. No, it's going to it's going to like general pension funds and people's 401ks, right? Mutual funds, stuff like that, right? So if you cut those, if you basically make it impossible for a grocery store to profit at least 1% and up to 3%, right? All those shareholders are going to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
All their investments are going to fucking go down the tubes, right? Including pensioners. And I'm just like, they don't have any ability to extrapolate. Modern monetary theory says that it doesn't matter how much a government borrows because they can always print enough money to cover the interest.
There are literal like guys that are supposedly money men that have said that. And they're like, well, they can print money, right? Isn't that how that works? I don't remember the guy's name, but I know it was a viral clip.
Yeah, no. I tweeted that earlier today. But and he's Biden's chief economic advisor.
Yeah.
And he has a degree in music and a degree in social work. So and I'm just like, these are who we're being led by. Like there was a guy on Cavuto, and a lot of right wingers don't like Neil Cavuto, right? But he was interviewing one of Kamala's top campaign advisors who's worked in several Democratic administrations. And he was like, so you don't think that like all of this extravagant spending, right, had anything to do with inflation, like increasing the money supply without increasing the supply of products and services to buy, right, with actually artificially decreasing them by, having these lockdowns and stopping production and supply chain crisis and all of that, right? You don't think that contributed to it? You don't think that was in any way responsible for the inflation crisis? And he's like, oh, I don't think it was significant. And I'm just like, how can these people tie their shoelaces? Like, I don't understand it. Like, these are people who would go for a freaking electrical socket with a butter knife, right? Oh, look, safe. Like, they're
safe and effective.
Experimenting across the entire fucking country. Oh, let's give it a try. It didn't work for Venezuela. It worked for them for quite a while, but then they started having to eat their family pets because a brick of fucking cheese cost 2 weeks' pay. Like,
yeah. I got a Rumble rant again from OIC for $1, and they say tax on unrealized gains, but no tax benefit on unrealized losses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay, so let me jump ahead to another bit. I want to play the rest of this.
Probably no tax break on realized losses under her plan too.
Yeah.
Which would bankrupt everybody.
All right, I'm going to play that JD Vance thing again because I want to listen a little bit more closely. We're kind of running out of time already, and I wanted to get to something else because, like, here's the thing that the thesis of what I want to make clear about this particular election. Okay, the Democrats' play is attack men, protect women. That's basically it, like in the nutshell. Protect women's rights. Project 2025 is going to oppress them. Handmaid's Tale. No abortion bans everywhere, but also forced pregnancies. And on top of that, toxic masculinity. I'm going to get into that in a second because I have the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, that's like Kamala Harris's husband.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
They did a whole thing. I mean, I'm not going to play the whole video, but they brought him out specifically to be like, essentially, so you're the husband of the most powerful woman in the world, or who they're hoping will be. So that means you're in the cucked secondary role, because apparently that's how we always thought of the spouse of the president. I mean, now we do. So how does it feel? And he's like, feels good, because it's good to be a man that's in touch with his feminine side, or something like that. So yeah, it's going to be, for the men, you get toxic masculinity narratives. You get, people raiding Andrew Tate's house. You get like whatever, like the UK, they just did a thing in the UK. I'm sorry. They just did a thing in the UK where they made
program.
They made misogyny. They're saying misogyny is going to be treated like terrorism.
Yeah.
And they're doing it because they have this situation where there are women experiencing catcalling and harassment on the street by men who are not English, who are here from another country that has a different culture, and there are different expectations. And so those women are made uncomfortable. So they're going to blame somebody, but they can't blame those men because that would be racist. So instead, they just blame all men, and then everyone gets on board. Yeah, it's totally like it's all men. It's not these men from third world countries. No. It's just men in the abstract, and that's where we are. So we're just and then they went and they were like, oh yeah, it's men like Andrew Tate online. It's like, no. It's the foreign dudes that you let into your country that don't even speak your language, that don't have any jobs, and they're just out here on the streets trying to basically pick up women the way that they did back home, and you're not happy about it, but you're so afraid of being called racist. You're so afraid of being seen as a bigot that you'll do anything to not be seen that way. So you just attack men in general. And then you get to shift it and basically just make it about the white men that live in England, because they put a PSA video out of street harassment, and their examples is a bunch of white dudes catcalling women. I'm like, hey, is that really what's happening? Is that really what's happening in the UK? Why are you lying? Why are you lying? So anyway, sorry about that. Just a bit of a digression. I'm just seeing where with the way the wind is blowing.
Yeah.
And that's what it looks like. So, all right.
Make their life matter any less. However, J.D. Vance said this.
Let's give votes to all children in this country, but let's give control over those votes to the parents of those children. You should have more power. You should have more of an ability to speak your voice in our democratic republic than people who don't have kids. Let's face the consequences and the reality. If you don't have as much of an investment in the future of this country, maybe you shouldn't get nearly the same voice.
Can I just say that?
I think that's fucking based. I'm for it. I'm so sick and tired of these fucking people. I mean, I know it'll never happen. I think Trump, when they asked him about it, he was like, I don't know anything about it, right? And
yeah.
But he probably wouldn't agree, because I think that at the end of the day, and the one thing these people don't want to accept is that Trump hasn't changed that much. He's always been
a centrist.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's a centrist.
Yeah, he's a moderate, and he's always been a moderate, but they didn't like him because Hillary Clinton wanted that position, and so they dragged his name through the mud, and they did everything they could to slander him, and the only reason was because he was up against a woman. And the only reason, by the way, Trump ran as a Republican was because he knew that if he ran as a Democrat, they would never let him, because he was generally supportive of Democrats. I think he was supportive of Bill Clinton and stuff. So he was never a right-wing guy, really. Bad. No, he wasn't. He was all right. I mean, but my point is that, and I said this from the beginning, I said Trump is only running as a Republican because he knows that if he ran as a Democrat, they would kick him out. He would not be allowed, because they don't, I don't know if you noticed, okay, but they're not really good about letting the people choose the candidate. So So Trump would never have gotten in. Bernie Sanders didn't get in. They pushed him out because he wasn't on the inside, even though he's a straight up commie. And like they forced Kamala Harris on people this year. Like if you don't see that as a pattern,
no.
Oh no, it wasn't a coup.
Oh, it was a coup. It was a coup. It's just choosing the new ruler. They got screwed, right?
Yeah.
Think of it this way, right? Okay, somebody, okay, posted that resignation letter or whatever you want to call it, right? Signed by Biden. Somebody posted that. Might not have even been Biden. He might not have even been in on it, right? Before it went up. Okay, but then half an hour later, okay, and all it said is, I want to thank my vice president, Kamala Harris, for helping me do all these, wonderful things. Okay, but no endorsement there, right? Which is why I think he didn't write it. And if he had endorsed her in that letter, they wouldn't have approved it. And then one of his loyal staffers, the ones who actually still stuck with him, helped him tweet, I fully endorse Kamala, right? And look at how long it took Pelosi and Barack Obama to endorse Kamala. You know how long it took? As long as it took to look into the legalities of transferring money from the Biden-Harris campaign to the Harris whoever campaign without having to refund all of that money to the donors, right? And have them donate again, right? And the moment they looked into the legalities of that transfer of funds from the one campaign to the Biden campaign to the Harris campaign, or to somebody other than that, like arguably legally you could argue, right? Well, she was on the ticket in the Biden-Harris campaign, right? And Gavin Newsom, right, or Josh Shapiro is not.
Gavin Newsom, also known as Nancy Pelosi's nephew.
Yes, yeah, but I mean they're not. And so the legalities of transferring that 280 million or however much money it was, right, that was still in the Biden campaign coffers, transferring it to someone outside the ticket was legally problematic. It would have been a massive FEC violation, and then they would have had to refund all of that money and start fundraising from scratch, right? And the legality is still questionable. In terms of unless Biden agreed to transfer all of his money, well, it's still questionable, but it helps that he agreed to transfer all of his money to Harris. And I think that this was his way of getting back at his ousters. Right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Nailing them down and making them pay for what they did to him. And you don't want me, well, you're stuck with her now. And fuck you and fuck all y'all. And I think it took a week or so for Pelosi and Obama to look through the legalities of everything before they were like, yeah, actually, because he did that, we're stuck with her.
Yeah.
And nobody was really wanting to jump in either, right? Like, I think Gavin Newsom was being genuine when he said, like, yeah, no, I don't want to run in 2024. Why would he say that? Because 2020 to 2024 has been an absolute fucking catastrophe, right?
Especially for California.
Yeah, well, for California, for the entire United States.
Yeah,
and, and it's like that is so much fodder in terms of like campaign ads and stuff. Like, America's really bad off because of the Democrats, and now Gavin Newsom, the guy who destroyed the 9th largest fucking economy in the world, which is California compared to other countries, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and he destroyed it. He ran it into the ground with his policies. And, you know, he wants to turn the rest of America into California, right? And, you know, like, no, he was not going to do that. He needs to wait for all the dust to settle. He's going to run in 2028. I guarantee it, right? Maybe not 2020, maybe 2032. But if Kamala wins,
Oh.
he's yeah, no. No,
The
things are
worst
going to
part
be.
is that it's actually like quite possible. Like
Yeah, no,
the
but
amount of women that are willing to go out and the men who support them.
I know,
Oof.
and it's like, but you know, like Democrats touching this ticket, right? Especially after Biden's cognitive disabilities, his decline came out, and you know, it's like people are like saying, you know, like, what, you were lying this whole time that he was like sharp as a tack, and you know, like, the economy's in ruins and the world's on fire and there's all these the troubles and tribulations and all of this, right? And and you know, like, and you've been lying, right, this whole time, right? And you know, somebody actually said, because there was that jobs report that came in that said they overestimated the jobs created by 818,000. Oops. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right? Over the last year, right? And oops, we forgot to carry the one, I guess. And so we basically said that there were like 1.2 million jobs or something created over the course of like 2023. Turns out it was 818,000 jobs, less than that. And so you have, but that coming out, I think actually that might be a ploy, because you know, the only thing that can save the Harris campaign, right, and the Democrats right now is an interest rate cut. And the only way they're going to get an interest rate cut is if the economy is in poorer shape than everybody thought.
I mean, that's all very rational and everything, Karen, but have you considered joy is the reason we should be voting? Have you considered women and vibes and Megan the Stallion and
Well,
and Doja Cat and Harry Sisson on TikTok? Have you considered that what's his name? The vice president is essentially America's dad now, despite the fact that he allowed Minneapolis to burn to the ground and he had like crazy lockdowns where people had to call the cops on each other during COVID. But vibes and joy. That's it. Economy? What's that? We can just print more money. Sorry, it's just you're being really rational. I like to hear it, but unfortunately, too many people are just not there. They're just not there.
This is why they dropped basic, not even just basic economics, right?
Yeah.
But personal finances from the curriculum in high schools,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
home ec, I think they called it home ec, right? Home economics.
No,
I never took it. Oh, I thought that was basically
home economics was how to like remove stains from clothes and how to like cook and you know how to like clean your kitchen sink and things like that, right? How to sterilize your countertops and maybe how to sew and stuff like that. That was home ec back when I was in school. But basically they, since my kids were small, right, they've had courses called some variation of career and life management, mandatory course that you take in high school. And so there I am working at Tony Roma's, and there's these hostesses and expos, right, expediters, right, they carry out the food, but they can't carry drinks. They can't be a server, right? But these are like high school girls. They're 17 and 16, 17. They've all taken career and life management. And one of them is like, I applied for my third credit card and got rejected, even though I have a job. And I was like, okay, we're going to need to sit down. and have a talk. You applied for 3 credit cards. How did you apply for them? Well, I got these things in the mail, right? And so I filled them out and I
Want a credit card? Yeah.
You want a credit card? Yeah. You know, and they're always offering you the best one, right? And because you're just dear occupant, right? They don't know anything about you. And then you apply for the best one, and then you know, if your credit score was like even slightly above 0, now it's down back to 0 because you applied and were rejected, right? These girls didn't even know what a credit score was, right? What it's good for, why you need one, and how to build and maintain one. I was like, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to your bank, right? You have a debit, you have like a checking account. They have your like history of like paychecks and everything all there, right? And you're going to go sit down with a bank rep and ask them if you qualify for a credit card and to please get, you know, apply on your behalf to get you a credit card. Okay. And then they will be able to look at your situation, right? And figure out, you know, as basically someone with 0 credit yet, right? And figure out what you qualify for, what's going to be too much, you know, and get you the card that you should have, right? Based on your financial information, which they have at hand, right? And they're not going to screw you over by trying to talk you into applying for a card you don't qualify for, which will drop 50 points off your fucking credit score when you get rejected, right? And it's like, they're like, oh, I had no idea. And I'm like, well, you know, did you not, like, haven't you taken career and life management yet? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, what are they fucking teaching you?
Yeah, I don't think that. I don't think they're preparing young people.
There was this one project where we had to like draw our dream vanity plates. I was like, did they teach you how to drive?
All right, we got to do a little bit more of this video.
A little bit more, yeah.
Yeah. Or you know, because I mean, like, look,
we
ultimately
could come back on Monday, but
yeah, ultimately her thesis is men having like childless women should not be treated poorly compared to women with children. And the implication is that J.D. Vance is mean to childless women because he says, and I think it's quite accurate, although maybe not universal, like not to all women, but a lot, that people, and this is also probably the case with men as well, but men aren't really a problem right now. Women are. Sorry, but it's true. But he's basically like childless women are, you know, they're becoming a voting bloc. They've become a voting bloc.
yeah,
essentially.
and they're not future focused.
Right, because they're not future focused. The reason why is because they don't have kids. Then they're just like, oh, what, and then the any politician, it could be Republicans too, any politician can get votes from those women by promising those women stuff in the moment. Yeah, free shit in the moment. So, you know, it just so happens that the Dems have a stranglehold on that because they're offering abortions. The Roe v. Wade being overturned is like the impetus for that, and they get to fearmonger around that. What?
Subsidies on fake eyelashes. How about that?
Yeah, they probably. I mean, they could. I don't know. Like they could give women. I mean, they're already. I don't know. There's like not a lot left that you can offer women for free. Like they've already given them a lot. Kick your man out of the house, and we'll pay for your house, and we'll put food on your table, and we'll take care of your kids while you work another job. We'll provide the healthcare. We'll provide the education. I mean, there isn't much left to offer women. So this is just
maybe you don't have to work at all.
Yeah. So well, I mean, a lot of them don't, and I mean, it's a trap. I'm not happy about it. I don't think it's good for them. But at the end of the day, like, what else is there to offer? And that's another thing I think the Dems are trapped in, is that they have to come up with really novel ways to like, you know, offer gibs to women so they get votes. And that's, you know, what the fear-mongering around Project 2025 is. Mostly, it's that those gibs might be taken away. or at least some of them. But I mean, like, if we're gonna reduce the spending somewhere, so like, you know, but like again, because
no, but I don't think that there needs to be any cuts to social programs, right? Like, okay, in terms of like managing inflation and getting like the debt ceiling under control and all of that, like, I don't think that those things are or should be the first to be cut, right? All the green stuff, the green stuff needs
all the environmental stuff.
Go. No, and the regulation, because somebody actually crunched the numbers. I think it was Art Laffer. He crunched the numbers and he found that because like when Trump came into office, he had an executive order that said for every new regulation you have to get rid of 3, right? And that's not necessarily just like, ooh, you know, like X and we got to get rid of Y and Z and, you know, A. No, it's like, but consolidate and streamline your regulations. You can still have the same amount of regulations with less red tape and less cost to businesses, right? Because you're just filling out one form instead of 20 that go to 20 different government departments, right? Okay, so it's like you can still have the same rules. It's just less red tape, less cost, less government bloat. And so basically, and apparently between all of the spending bills that don't involve funding the government and maintaining Social Security and Medicare and other mandatory programs, just on discretionary spending, the Democrats and the Biden-Harris administration have added more than $1 trillion in enforcement costs for the federal government in terms of new regulations. So that's not the cost to the company, right? Which is a cost, right, of filling out those forms. It's the cost to the government of processing them.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you want a guaranteed job where you don't have to have any skill or talent, try to get a job as part of the bureaucracy and you'll be set for as long as there is a tax base. So okay, but anyway, so we're gonna try to, because we're getting close to the end here. I gotta I'm gonna move. We're gonna change gears. So I think we got to the thesis of what her point is. You know, like, we should make women feel bad, and we're going to get revenge by essentially, like, you know, sinking your country. Take that, patriarchy, and capitalism, because she hates both of those things. So, like, you know, whatever. Yeah. But let's look at this, because this is another angle on the same thing. So this is Doug Emhoff. He is Kamala Harris's husband. And he is going to be, well, you know, he is sort of like, he's the second gentleman, which is like the first lady is the wife of the president, you know, and then the second lady is the wife of the vice president. So because he's a man, he's the second gentleman. And because he is a man and he is in the Kamala Harris camp, well, he has to decry toxic masculinity, because these are the talking points. This is why I'm saying, like, this is literally like, just like in 2016 was, you know, the male running, the man running for office, Trump, against feminism, which was embodied by Hillary Clinton, and now it's happening again. And they're doubling down, because when Clinton was running, I don't think the toxic masculinity narrative was quite as mainstream yet, but now that it's become like, it's like in the, you know, it's in the air, so they're going to use it. So this is Doug Emhoff on MSNBC, MSNPC, talking to the interview about toxic masculinity. I want to also point out, while we're watching this, he doesn't really know what it is. He just knows what he's told to say. That's what I think, anyway.
Can we just talk about masculinity for a moment? Has being second gentleman changed your own view of perceived gender roles, or what it means to be a man?
This is something I've thought about a lot, and something I've spoken about a lot. There's too much of toxicity, it's masculine toxicity out there, and
right. You mean men having opinions,
and but too little soy.
Well, that's what's going on. I'm gonna play some more.
This trope out there that you've got to be tough and angry and lash out to be strong. It's just the opposite. Strength is how you show your love for people. Strength is how you are for people.
Well, okay, what's the difference between strong and tough? Like, describe it. What's the difference between strong and tough, or resilient and tough, or determined and tough, or persistent and tough? What's the difference there? They're and strong, right? What? I'm sorry, those are all describing extremely similar ideas.
They're trying to control what it means to be a man, and it is all about so like the strength. I mean, what he's doing is he's basically taking words that he thinks men resonate with, like being tough and strong, and then he's like reapplying them to something that agrees with his set of ideas. And
you can be super tough and super strong. Well, not super tough, because that's not good for a man, but super strong, right? Well, crying your eyes out and sticking tampons up your nose to stop them from dripping, right? And because that's what it really, like, I'm sorry, men are allowed to cry, right? When a hockey player retires, right? Go ahead and cry when you're giving the speech, the farewell speech, whatever, right? When your dad dies, right? When your dog dies, perfectly fine to cry. Okay, but somebody needs to be the adult in the room, and the adult in the room cannot cry, right? At least not in the midst of a crisis. You save that, you take that into your freaking quiet place where you're on your own, right? And you don't let everybody who's depending on you know that you're breaking down, that you're crying, that you're sobbing. You don't do that, right? And it's just like, I'm sorry, but like low testosterone levels are correlated with political affiliation in men and women, right? And they've shown that even when you give women, you make them wear a testosterone patch, right? Because they have low libido. What they've reported to their doctors is, well, not only did my libido improve, but I just became less depressed and anxious, and I had less apprehension walking alone at night, and I felt more body confident, and I'm not so worried about my looks, like how I look to other people, right? I'm not so concerned about my appearance, and it's just really improved my life in so many ways. And it's just, and I don't get upset. I don't get so upset anymore about little things. And it's like, I'm like, oh, wait. So testosterone is a natural antidepressant, anti-anxiety med, mood leveler, and confidence booster, right? Testosterone levels in the last 20 years alone in men have decreased by 25%. Well, there you go. That's what Harry Sisson is. That's what Luke Beasley is, right? It's not what my two boys are, but that's because I feed them right.
Yeah, right. They eat red meat.
Yeah, well, not too much soy, lots of red meat, and as many natural products as possible.
Yeah, whole foods are very important. That's what we try to do. I mean, I don't mean the store. I mean, like, the foods themselves are not processed. They're not, factory farmed. If you can help it, because it is essentially like poison. And stay away from everything that's in the center of the grocery store. But anyway, okay, so I guess because it's almost 3 and I got to pick up Lindsay soon, we should probably wrap it up there. But I wanted to tell you what the tactics are. So essentially, if you're American, recognize that the DNC's platform is women are going to be destroyed unless we vote for them. It is terrifying women. I don't know how effective it is, but I know it is the language. I think the language of fear is something that you should not respond to. I think you should be rational. I think you should be humble. I think you should set aside your ego. I think you should explore like what is actually going on and actually ask, what are your policies? Because we have not heard any policies out of that camp yet. And the other side of the coin is that we're going to double down on the language of toxic masculinity. It started in academia, it spread into the professional field, especially in psychology, and now it's in our politics. So it's only spreading farther and getting worse. And I think it has to die. My opinion is what it means to be masculine, ultimately, is the ability to say no unapologetically. Like establishing boundaries is basically the essence of masculinity, and you have to be able to do it. Say no.
Well, I think honestly, you know, like when it comes to men and women, there are some universal good qualities, right, that you're looking for. So honesty, honorability, loyalty, thinking clearly in a crisis, right? And responsibility, taking accountability, taking care of others in whatever way is best suited to you. And you know, like all of those things, right? And those differ a little bit between men and women. And it was Mahalik who pruned, right, the conformity to masculine norms inventory by basically removing any positive male trait that women also felt applied to them, like being a faithful partner, or you know, providing for one's family, or you know, all of that stuff, right? And so he basically said, well, women feel that applies to them too, and so it's no longer a masculine quality. And that's how this toxic masculinity narrative started, was with Mahalik in, I think it was 2003 or something like that. And he described how he did it and how he came up with it. And it was basically anything that women felt that also applied to them, it couldn't be considered masculinity. And, you know, that is extremely divisive, because when 98% of men say that their masculinity is defined by being a faithful partner or a good provider or a nurturer, and only 2% say that it's getting laid by as many hoes as possible, right? And he's like, well, women feel like those first three, they feel that's an expectation. So the only thing left is being a playboy who gets laid by as many hoes as possible. Well, that's what masculinity is, right? Because those other traits can't be called masculine because they're universal. And I'm like, except they are masculine and they're feminine and they're part of the overlap, and men and women do them in different ways, right? Often, but you know, there's little difference between providing money for your household and putting, you know, working hours and hours a day to provide money for your household, and working hours and hours a day to take care of your children, to put food, to take that food and put that money, turn it into groceries, put that food on the table, feed everybody, right? Everybody's nurturing everyone else, right? It's like a team effort where everybody's using, like, not everybody can be like the quarterback, right? That doesn't mean the tight end is like toxic.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, again, yeah, masculinity is under attack. And I think in a lot of ways, some feminine, you know, femininity is too, because it's being weaponized against men and against itself. And I think that that's unhealthy, and we should not stand for it, and we should definitely not listen to it. So, Anyway, I'm going to end the show there. So thanks, Karen, for coming on. I hope that you got all the stuff off your chest that you wanted to. I don't know if there was something else about this whole situation.
Thus far, yeah, no, but we'll have to revisit this maybe on Monday.
All right. Yeah, let's do that. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming on the Rantzerker. Let me just double check, make sure I didn't miss any messages. I don't think there have been. There might be thank yous. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the back room for that. So Allison will have to do that on her own time. But we're going to end the show here. Thank you guys so much for coming on. If you guys like this video, please hit like. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. If you want to see, I think there's a link to the original video by Bryony Claire in the description so you can watch it yourself. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of the Rantzerker, and we'll talk to you all in the next video.
Are machines, dude. Okay, they are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.